Hi, this is Suyesh from Critinity, a forum for discussion on video games. Playing Hellblade over the weekend has got me thinking about death. Don't worry, I'm not losing sleep over my mortality after playing a game. I meant in the context of the digital world. Through the years, video games have gone through numerous transitions, but be it Atari's Asteroids in 1979 or Cyberpunk 2077, one thing has remained constant: the looming fear of death. In retro games, the screen goes black as the word "Game Over" seal your fate, and you lose a life. In modern titles, a very obvious gameplay tip is displayed, or an enemy mocks you while you respawn at your last checkpoint. For the most part, the concept of death has remained the same. Time rewinds itself and you lose a few minutes of your progress without any real meaning behind your demise. However, some of the more creative developers have devised a way around this. The concept of permadeath and roguelikes gives a certain weight to mortality, as Moss Mouth's Indie Sensation Spelunky yields a completely new map on every respawn. Rogue Legacy takes it a step further, as it gives you a completely new character with all new abilities every time you die. Other modern games like Shadow of Mordor makes the player death meaningful by impacting the story. Orcs that kill Talion, the game's protagonist, not only taunt you in their next encounter, but also rises in the organizational structure of Sauron's army. A fan favorite franchise that is essentially built around player death is Dark Souls. The games in this series take immense pleasure in killing you and wiping away a big chunk of your hard-earned progress. It is, however, generous enough to let you traverse back to the place of your demise and collect your loot. The notoriously tough-to-beat enemies, sparse checkpoints, and the system of corpse running make death feel more than just a timeout. Despite all these creative workarounds, the fact still remains that you die, and that breaks immersion. Enter Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. This unsettling psychological thriller is all about immersion. The camera closely frames Senua's body language and forces you to stick with her in the most daunting moments of her journey. However, every developer and their dog is incorporating that today, and it can hardly be considered innovative. The true gem that elevates Hellblade over others is the voices in Senua's head. Not only are they omnipresent, reacting to Senua's every action, but they also help her during combat, making the experience far more profound and immersive. Now, a game like that can hurt immensely if the player dies repeatedly. It can break the narrative, rendering the entire experience meaningless. The developers at Ninja Theory came up with a really simple solution to the problem at hand. Never kill Senua. Okay, it is a little more complicated than that, and the protagonist isn't immortal, obviously, but that is basically the essence of the solution. The game is designed in a way that it is possible, even for a casual player, to beat the entire thing without ever dying. Now, this might seem to diffuse the tension a game like Hellblade should be dripping with, but nothing could be further from the truth. The developers figured out what should have been crystal clear to everybody, but for some reason isn't. The tension does not come from the actual death of the character, rather from the vulnerability to the possibility of death. This is the very reason Batman is preferred over Superman. Everybody knows that neither of them will die, but Superman is invincible save the glowing green stone. On the other hand, Batman is a mere mortal and vulnerable to death as much as the guy selling hot dogs at a roadside stand in Brooklyn. This creates tension and makes the audience care about the character, despite knowing the character is gonna be all hunky-dory at the end. Similar is the case with Senua. Although there is a very little chance of her actually dying, she never feels like an invincible superhero during the combat. All she has at her disposal is her sword, which she can use to attack and parry, and a basic evasion maneuver. The only special ability she possesses is the move called Focus, which essentially slows down the enemy, but even that is rendered inadequate against the horde of enemies that are far bigger and stronger than Senua. Add to this the absence of free-flowing combat in favor of tense one-on-one battles while surrounded by multiple enemies, and you'll have desperate last-ditch attempts of a vulnerable warrior who seems to win every fight on her last legs. Another core mechanic is the lie about the possibility of permadeath, which is meant to delete the player's save data after they surpass a number of deaths and the curse take over Senua's mind. In some other game, this would have been a cheap trick, but here it's the perfect lie, as 90% of the players won't die as many times to figure out the deception, which further adds to the entire fear of death. If there ever was a game with perfect harmony between the story and gameplay, Hellblade has to be it. The developers at Ninja Theory have not only created a phenomenal game, but also devised an innovative way to deal with death in video games. Sure, this is not a one-solution-fits-all deal, but it is definitely a step in the right direction and something other game developers should take notes from. So this was my take on the most interesting aspect of Hellblade. If you liked the video, there is a button down there somewhere for that. We are planning to release a video every week, so subscribe if you want to embark on this wonderful journey with us. Next week, tune back in as we dissect Senua's heart-wrenching tale in much more depth on the wrap-up.